I see some really familiar names in the chat already, which just makes me very happy. So, hello, Graham. Hello, Amelia, Justine, Graham, Sean. Locke, I don't know what your first name is. Maybe that is your first name, but thank you for being here. Is my sound okay? I just want to double check that and we'll kind of get started. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's beautiful here in Detroit today, but tomorrow, I think it's like 75 here right now. Fahrenheit, Celsius, that would mean 20. Yeah, I think that would be 20. But it's going down to 36 tomorrow night. So we're really close to a freeze. I think that's 2 Celsius. So we're in that, who knows what the weather's going to be like from day to day. So that's just kind of how things are at change of seasons around here. But I'm going to answer Sean's question about how we can safely without one of the USA canners. Okay, so I'm assuming that you're talking about, I don't know if you're talking about pressure canning or if you're just talking about water bath canning. And water bath canning really does not need any special equipment. You just need a large pot with a lid so that you can boil your jars so that a vacuum can be made. Let me back that up. If you are water bath canning, it has to be a somewhat acidic food. If it's not acidic, it needs to be pressure canned. Now that's a different ball game. I did see your question, so I went over and looked at some UK sites. They do sell Presto pressure canners in the UK. They're just about twice as much as what we pay for them here. But if you want to get into preserving foods that are not terribly acidic, the only way I know to do that, if you're canning them, is with pressure. Otherwise, we can do freezer stuff. We can do some other ways to preserve your food, but pressure canning takes it up to, I think, about 240 degrees Fahrenheit. So that water in those jars are getting really hot, and I think that's like 115 Celsius. So you can't just do that on your stovetop with water. So I hope that helps. Not sure it does. But I did find some. Well, one was on eBay and one was, I forget Amazon over there doesn't seem to carry them. So, but there were a few other sites. So I thought maybe I would start just by going through some methods of preservation. And I don't see Mama's Oasis here yet. She sent me a question, so I'm going to wait and see if she comes in. So, a lot of different ways to preserve what we've grown. And wait, that's not Graham. What might be Graham? Is it Graham that has the Plot 3B on Instagram? Am I remembering that correctly? Is that you, Graham? Well, if it is, your food shots, your food photography is crazy good. And I enjoy that Instagram channel so much. So anyway, okay, sorry, digress. So let's go to types of food preservation. We all know about like cool temperature storage. I'm sorry, I keep looking over there because that's where my chat is. Um, and really, anytime we're cooling anything down, and that does not just mean refrigeration, it could mean I have a root cellar where I keep potatoes and carrots and some of my root crops. All we're trying to do through any kind of food preservation is slow down uh, the deterioration of the food. That's all we're doing. We're not. It's not one and done. All of these methods, all they do is slow it down. They don't make it like, I don't know about you people, but sometimes I think when I put something in the freezer, it's good forever. It's not. That has a shelf life too. It's just slowing down so that we can take advantage of maybe all of our beautiful harvested vegetables. We can take advantage of a sale on something at the grocery store. So it's all just about slowing things down. So we can cool store things. We can dry things. My food dehydrator right now runs just about 24/7. I dehydrate a lot of peppers. I dehydrate a lot of herbs. Um, but you can also dehydrate, fruits, vegetables, meats, fish. I mean, there's so many things that you can dehydrate. And then we get to water bath canning, which obviously one of the easier ways to can. The issue with water bath canning is you really need to be dealing with high acid foods. And the acid helps preserve what's in the vacuum inside the jar. And that's really what we're doing with water bath canning. We're boiling the jar. We're allowing the water to escape from the jar. And that's those two-part lids, where it's a flat piece that lays right on the jar. And there's a ring that goes around it that you just finger tighten so that water is able to exit the jar while it's being canned. And then as it's cooling off, a vacuum is formed, which helps preserve your food. So you want higher acidic things like salsas, chutneys, some tomato. I do a tomato sauce, a roasted tomato sauce that I can water bath can because the acid is high enough. A lot of fruits, fruit juices, those kinds of things. Just things that, or anything that you have perhaps home pickled, you can water bath can. Now, pressure canning, which does require a pressure can, not a pressure cooker, because I don't think those are, I have one of those instant pots. And I think if I were to use that for pressure canning, I'd get like 3 or 4 pints maybe in there. So that would be a very limited size. So I do have a pressure canner, and you can preserve almost anything in there, particularly if it's low acid. Any vegetables, dairy, meat, soups. You can prepare entire meals like stroganoff, things like that, and pressure can them. I prefer canning and pressure canning because the products are shelf stable. I don't have to use my freezer. Freezing, obviously, and that's the next thing on our list. I'll talk about Mama's Oasis did ask about what things can be frozen, like directly from the garden. You just wash them and you can freeze them. Her thing was that she had just learned that you could freeze tomatoes directly. Part of that is that tomatoes really are a fruit. They're not a veg. And fruits are very easy to freeze directly. You don't have to prep them. The other piece about freezing, when you get into freezing vegetables, is that a lot of them need to be blanched. And blanching is where you, oh, I just closed my window. I'm trying to see my notes here. I do so much of this just like off the top of my head. I thought, gosh, if I'm going to talk about it, I better write down a few notes. We're talking about freezing. Okay, so if you need to blanch, or a lot of things do need to be blanched, blanching really just, it sets the color of the vegetable. There's an enzyme in fresh vegetables that cause it, and you can see this if you leave some beans out, some green beans out on your counter, within a couple days, they're looking pretty sad and pathetic because there's an enzyme there that's what they do. They begin to rot because their goal, remember, is to get those seeds back in the ground. So if this is just out like in the world, the goal is to get the seeds growing. So it's going to rot down pretty quickly. So blanching helps set the color, set some texture, and set your flavor. Now, I did also try to look up a few other things that you can freeze directly without blanching, and that would be sweet corn or any corn on the cob. You can either freeze it on the cob or you can take the kernels off. You can freeze peas. You can freeze broccoli. I might be tempted to blanch that if I was going to keep it for a minute. Cauliflower, carrots. I actually dry pack or cold pack my carrots before I pressure can them, which just means I chop them up, fill the jar with water, put it in a cold pressure canner, let it come up to temperature, and I can have carrots on a shelf rather than in my freezer. We've got green beans, squash, a lot of your general greens. I just put up a whole lot of chard, and it turned into 2 really small bags because I have a food saver that takes all the air out before I freeze it. And it came in looking like mountains of chard, and it takes up almost no space. Other things, onions, peppers, celery, some herbs. You can just directly freeze those. Okay, let's see what's next. Freeze drying. I do not have a freeze dryer, but if you watch, there's a whole lot of channels on YouTube where people have invested in freeze dryers. They're a definite investment. They're between $3,000 and $4,000. But if you are really committed to doing this it freezes it and then it dries it in a cold state. The results look phenomenal. I just do not have one, but they look great. Fermentation is another one. And fermentation is it's like a chemical reaction that changes yeast or bacteria in your solution to carbohydrates or alcohol, so it helps preserve what's in the jar. And fermentation is done where there's no air. There can be no air. It has to be anaerobic. And it produces like a funky flavor. It's a really good funky flavor, but it's definitely got that funk. Sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented pickles, yogurt, kombucha. Those are all things that are fermented. But I think that flavor, I mean, aside from the fact that fermentation offers a whole lot of health benefits, it's got that little funk that's nice. I have kimchi right now that I've just put into the refrigerator because it's at a level of fermentation that I like. And I'm going to be starting some sauerkraut here in the next couple of weeks. You can also preserve with salt and sugar. There used to be salt cod, salt pork. Jams and jellies are real. They're essentially preserved fruit in sugar. You can preserve in alcohol. Alcohol is a great way to make your own vanilla. If you're a baker, delicious vanilla. I'm also going to do some infused alcohols for Christmas gifts this year. When my oldest daughter was married, they had bride and groom drinks. I guess that's kind of thing. And the groom's drink was good old Kentucky bourbon with grapefruit juice, the red grapefruit juice, and a smack of basil. And let me tell you, that was a very good beverage. So I want to take some Kentucky bourbon and put some grapefruit zest and a little bit of basil in there and see if I can't make a nice little beverage to give away as a Christmas gift. Anyway, another two, vinegar pickling, which is really just you put cucumbers in a brine that's heavily vinegar. It's usually half vinegar, half water. Little salt. So you can make pickles. You can pickle beets. You can pickle peppers. You can pickle carrots. Onion. We have generally got pickled onions going in our refrigerator all the time because they just add a nice bright flavor to almost any dish. So vinegar pickling, very simple. You don't need any special equipment for that. And then there's like oil preserving. I made yesterday it's a Vietnamese scallion oil or scallion condiment. And I saw on a different YouTube channel where a Vietnamese exchange student made this for the family she was living with. And she used garlic chives. And I have a ton of garlic chives. So I thought I would give it a try. And it is incredible. And you just chop up the chives, obviously, after you've cleaned them and gotten rid of anything brown or bruised. And you heat up. I used avocado oil because the burning point is so high. You can really get that hot. And you add salt. And you pour this hot liquid or hot oil over the chives. Oh my, it got my head going though. I thought, okay, what else? How else can I preserve herbs like this? Because it's phenomenal. But I know you can, I also have a jar of garlic in my refrigerator right now that just has olive oil on it. And that will preserve for quite some time. But you can do that with mushrooms, peppers, but those also require refrigeration. So, in a nutshell, there's also smoking, and I guess jerky is more of a dehydrated So maybe that covers it. But I wonder if anybody has any specific questions after what I talked about. Let me see. There's still some. Exactly. Claudia, exactly. You gave Sean absolutely correct information there. Yeah. So, anything specific you would like to know about any of these ways? This isn't really a tutorial in how to, but I sure can give you information in how to. One of the questions about fermenting that I believe I got was just kind of how to. Here's the thing with fermenting, like I said, you want no air, so everything needs to be below the brine. And a really simple brine for fermentation is a quart of distilled water or purified water. You don't want to use tap water. The chlorine, of course, if you're in the UK, that might be different. Here, the chlorine is way too strong. It's a quart of water to 2 tablespoons of salt. And I would use non-iodized salt. So sea salt, canning salt, something that really dissolves and has no additives to it. And then you pour that over a jar of chopped vegetables, whatever it is you're interested in fermenting. And then you make sure that the vegetable content is always below the brine. And you can do that. We have weights. There are little clear weights that you can put on there. You can use a different canning jar. Another way is to fill up a bag, like a Ziploc bag or a baggie, with water and use that on the top so that it seals the vegetables that are in the jar from floating to the top. And you want to just sit that on a counter for, I don't know, 3 to 7 days. And I would taste it in between so you know at what level of ferment you're happy. And then it goes in the refrigerator where then you can use it. And it pretty much stays at the level. It'll continue to ferment a little bit, but putting it in the refrigerator obviously slows things way down. So I hope that I am going to add a couple links at the bottom here. There, I'm still kind of figuring out this live stuff. So I will, when it gets posted after this, I will add some links. There is a gentleman, and I believe his channel is Pro Home Cooks. He does one of the best explanations on fermentation I've ever seen. So I think I will link you to that if you have more interest in finding out about fermentation. So anything else that you'd like to know or want me to talk about a little further? Okay, so shall I? How long have we? Oh gosh, we've already been on like half an hour. Any other? Nothing else? First of all, and let me just say this: I think preserving your own food it's an absolute wonderful experience. It's like growing your own food. There's just you know what's in it, you know what additives there are. You don't have to wonder, was this a GMO seed because I bought it at the grocery store? No, if you grew your own corn, you know where those seeds came from. Um, and I think all of these methods have their place. Again, I try to do as much as I can not to overload my freezer. So I'm a big canning or pressure canning person if I have that option. Sometimes you don't want to because you don't like the texture of what comes out. I'm about ready to harvest my celeriac, and I'll be pressure canning that so that it will be almost fully cooked and ready to be used in almost anything that I'd like it to be. So some of these pressure canning, oh, let me talk about this. Beans. I'm gonna just, this is one of my favorite things to do. I grow more beans for the dried bean than for like green beans. I actually like the dried legume that's on the inside. And you can pressure can those. And it's called a cold pack. So you put like half a cup of dried beans in a jar, quart jar, fill it up with water, put it in a pressure canner, let it come up to temp. And when that's done being canned, you have legit cans of beans that are ready to just be used like any other can of beans. And again, you know where they came from, you know what they were made of, and I just love doing it. So do any of you can, or what kind of? I could tell Claudia has done some canning. That's obvious from her answers. Um, but do any of you do canning, and what do you think about it? Okay, we have a quiet crowd today, or somehow we have disconnected. Okay, well, I'm thinking maybe then I should just wrap up. Um, this was fun. I do love doing lives. I feel like they're, um, I don't know, I really enjoy them. So thank you for coming along with me today. And if you, again, I'll link some things after this goes up, after it's posted. And yeah, have a great day. And I will talk to you soon. Bye now.